Hello, everyone. We spare him to pronounce our names. My name is Ezgi Göçücü, and I have Hande Bodar. So today we'll talk about Content Hub 1. I need to get the clicker. How is everyone feeling? Still having hangovers? Should we keep it low? Yeah? Okay. Perfect. So before talking about what we are going to talk today, a short introduction. We just said our names. So I'm the product manager for Content Hub 1 and Content Operations, been with SUGCON for 7.5 years now. I have Hande.
And I'm the product owner for Content Hub 1. I've been with SUGCON for 1.5 years and in CMS world for more than 15 years.
So what do we have for you today? We have a bit of a packed agenda, so bear with us. So we will start with what's latest in Content Hub 1, and then we'll move to the part that we learned on these 3 months. So what we learned from you, from your feedback, and what we learned from our own experience. Then we are going to take a look at our roadmap and demo some new features, and we'll close with starter templates. So for the ones that have been to my presentations before, this slide would be familiar. I really like this slide because it's really a snapshot of how this industry evolved, how the web content management system industry evolved. Just to summarize, it started with static HTML web pages, and then when there is a mobile challenge come to the game, the vendors responded with a decoupled CMS, so they exposed their APIs, but then the more touch points increased, then the world moved to the headless CMS world. And that's in a way that explains why we are here right now with Content Hub 1. So Sitecore was quite responsive to the market. So this is basically Sitecore's evolution. For most of you, this is more, you were there most probably. I wasn't. I was lucky to be part of the last 2 milestones in this list. So last year, we released XM Cloud, and last year, December, we released Content Hub 1. But what happened since December 8, 2022? After 106 days later, we have 56 tenants, 112 users, and more than 2,500 content created in Content Hub 1. We had so far 7 releases. The 8th is coming after the SUGCON. And here you can see, actually, we are releasing quite fast. So we don't wait more than 2-3 weeks. When it's ready, we ship it, and you don't even notice it because there is no downtime, there is no upgrade hassle. 16 blogs were written. Some of you are in the room, the owners of these blog posts. Thank you very much for your feedback. We really appreciate it because we try to meet with you face to face, and this is a great opportunity for that. But of course, we cannot always talk to everyone all the time. So we are reading all these blog posts. I have a saved search in LinkedIn for hashtag Content Hub 1, also in Google. So we are constantly checking what's your feedback. So if you have any direct feedback later, please reach out to us. We are happy to talk to you. So what we learned from these blog posts, what we learned from these feedbacks that we have with you. Let's start with the good ones. So these are the feedback that we capture from you. When you're releasing an MVP product, it's hard to make a statement because you can never be in a feature parity with all the competitors in the space. But what we targeted was, let's build something that is performant, that is fast, and that is easy to use. And these feedbacks are actually confirming that we basically hit our target for the MVP. So additionally, we also heard about our documentation being really good, and we have a good foundation on the SDKs. And good to hear that it does the job well. Of course, next to these, we have a lot of feature requests. So you can see some of them here. So we captured all of them. We grouped all of them. So these are all the feedbacks that we got from you. But what do we mean by the experience, the things that we learned? Content Hub 1, currently in the content of Content Hub 1 is actually coming from Content Hub 1. So we are storing our own content in our own instance that we call Content Hub 1ception. So Hande is going to now give the details about that.
So when we released for early availability in October, we started with a draft homepage. It was a temporary homepage that we started. In the meanwhile, before the GA, together with our designer, we looked into our different user profiles, and we designed 3 different homepages for different user profiles. So we have an editor profile with the limited rights, which they can only manage content. So for them, we designed such a homepage. Whereas for the administrators, they had more rights. They could also manage the content types. So for the homepage, we needed to guide them more for the modeling part as well. So it was a similar homepage with more features. So then we came up with something like this. And then for organization administrators who are also able to, at the organization level, manage the users as well, we had some more features like inviting the users or being able to create support cases. So we had these 3 different roles on 3 different home pages. We also didn't have so much time. We only had a month or so to implement the homepage. So with these requirements, in terms of solution, what we needed was definitely something fast, something where we can reuse the content, because we didn't want to create 3 different home pages and need to maintain 3 different. So we wanted to, as much as possible, reuse. And also, we knew that this was only a starting point. We know we are going to add more features. We will have more training material. So we want to have the ability to update the homepage whenever we want it. So that sounds like a very good fit for a headless CMS, and we had one. So from there, we basically set up a new instance, a new tenant, the Content Hub Oneception tenant, and we modeled our content there. So we had a homepage content type where it had a field called audience, where we can tag which user sees which homepage. And then we had several reference fields for each different section. So we had one for banner, one for feature modules, another one for the SDK module. So this way we could, for different home pages, bring together the different pieces and tag it with the right profile, and so that user sees the right home page. And so on and so forth. So every piece that you see on the home page is basically a different reference, different type, and the structured content. And while we are at it, we also did the footer. So everything this way comes from the CMS itself. So once the modeling was done, the next step was to do the delivery parts. So we create the model, we define the content, and then we use the GraphQL endpoint also to get the data. So here you see a sample GraphQL query and the response, where we get all the data that is needed for that home page in a single query. So this way, for front-end developers, it's relatively straightforward. They don't need to make multiple calls, so it's really optimized for what they want to deliver for the front end. That went smooth, and of course we needed more content, so because we want to really guide the users in the journey, so we want to show contextual trainings and documentation. So one of the need was for the API keys and all the clients page as well, where it was not so clear, okay, where you go after. So we said, okay, let's add our links to the next step and the documentation. And for this, again, we knew we are evolving our GraphQL endpoint. There are new capabilities getting added, so we also wanted the flexibility. We didn't want to hard code the links there. So this also then started to come from the Content Hub Oneception. And then we really enjoyed that. We said, okay, why don't we use the SDKs? So we are automating our tests for our UI tests. So for this, we started to use the SDK. And that helped us a lot to set up the initial data. And thanks to that, instead of doing that from the UI, we do that with the SDK. This way, our test durations are also decreased, and this way, we also had the chance to experience how the SDK is being used. Now, let's see this in action, a small demo of the Oneception. So, I'm now on the Oneception tenant. So if you are like me, if you have multiple tenants or multiple organizations, here there is A small menu where you can see your org and your tenants. So we are, the CMS team has its own organization, and this is our tenants. And this is the homepage that you've also seen. So if we go to the content, if I filter, as I mentioned, we put many content here now. We use it more and more, but I can filter by the type. You can see that there is 3 different home pages. If I go to the organization owner one, then I see there is the banner, there are the feature modules, and the SDK module, documentation, supportive links, and so on. So all of them are here. What we can do together is, you have seen this homepage for a long time. It didn't change much, so let's change that together. The banner, I think it's not needed right now, so we can remove it. As Guy showed you, we did actually quite some releases. We are also documenting them, but not really accessible from here, so we can add a link to our release notes. And Sebastian built an SDK a starter kit, so we can also link to that. So I'm now going to the homepage. So I'll remove the banner. Then I can add okay, this one. I'll add the starter kit module, and let's save this and publish this. We are directly retrieving it from the delivery endpoint, not the preview for this one. And for the documentation, since we want it to be more flexible, it's a further level down. So we have a content item, a content type called link lists, which we can add many links. So now I can also add here what's new. The link is already there. So I will, since this is, we want it to be more visible, I put it on top. And publish this. So now let's go to the home page. And you see that the banner is gone. We have the what's new coming up, and the starter kit link is there, so you can see it available. So, and here are all the release details if you needed to access them. So from here, I think we can go back to the presentation. What did we learn from this? Like you did, we also have things that we like. First of all, we confirmed that it works. So that was reassuring. And we really enjoyed being our own customer and drinking our own champagne, because it's a completely different experience. Of course, we were using the application and testing it, but when you are a user, it's different, because you don't create just one item here and there. It's the process is quite different. So it really helps us to understand your way of using it and seeing it from the user perspective. We also liked the easy modeling and authoring experience. It was quite a smooth process to set up all the types and all the content items, so that was good to see in action. We were also happy with the efficient and quick development process, because as I mentioned, we didn't have so much time. But with this, we were able to actually implement in a few days, in 2-3 days, the 3 different home pages. So that's really showed the benefit of the headless and the product itself. What made us do this fast is, and which is also the benefit of the headless, is the content creation and the modeling run together with the development itself. Because while Ezgi and I were setting up the content types and content items, the front-end developers were able to already build HTML, and when we were ready, we just bring it together with the GraphQL endpoint, and that really speed up the process. And of course, we had more feature requests. So there are, of course, things that we've seen that we we can improve it. We knew, but we also had the chance to experience that. We can, from our perspective, we grouped it in two parts. One is more from efficiency perspective, things around being able to bulk upload media items or bulk publish them, being able to publish or delete items from list pages, or the experience on the name fields. It was not that efficient that we hoped for. Not having the ability to duplicate a content because we had similar types, it would have helped us in the process. So these are the things that we've seen that we can improve and we maybe give priority. From modeling perspective also, you see in the audience the field where we tag the different user roles. It would have been nice if it was a drop down, so that's something that we started to work on as we planned. Same for the images. SVGs would have been a preference. For now, we use the PNGs. And you've seen we had a very hierarchical structure. So being able to see that full hierarchy, it would have helped us to see, yes, we have a complete content. So that's something also we consider would be a good feature to have.
And that brings us back to the roadmap discussion. So there were things that we heard from you, and there were things that we think it would be good to have. So it was quite confirming to see that the things that we think we need are actually almost the same with the things that you need. So it was easy to put a roadmap together, if I'm honest. So our roadmap consists of 3 main themes. And Hande did a little bit of an introduction to that. So the first theme is marketing operational efficiency. Here we are focusing on the content authoring experience. So what we can do for the authors to work more flawlessly while they're creating and publishing their contents. Then the second theme is data modeling fundamentals. As it's in name, it's about more the modeling side of the story. So what we can add more for a better modeling experience for the developers or for the people, the content architects. And the last bit is media library improvements. Here we want to be able to come to a certain standards of a CMS where we provide more media capabilities. Let's take a look at the features one by one. So in the first theme, we have a few items that we can group together. So the first one is, and this is something we got from you as well, is creating a new content or a media item while you are creating a reference field. Currently in the system, you can go and independently create a media item and create a content item. Then while you are creating your content, you can only search from the existing ones, but you can't create a new one. So this is currently on dev, so we will be demoing it in a few moments, the referencing the content at least. In May, June time, we would also deliver the media bit together with the duplicate content. And later in the summer, we want to start 2 new tracks on this theme, basically. And the first one being is, like Hande mentioned, when your model has a lot of layers, it's really hard to lose the sight of how my overall modeling look like. So it would be really quite handy to have a hierarchical content tree display where you can really see how your page structure, content types are structured. And next to this, what we would like to focus on is bulk publishing of content and media items, because currently you have to publish them one by one, and it's kind of a cumbersome experience. And during the autumn time, we want to actually merge these 2 tracks. So you have your hierarchy display, you have your bulk publish. So in your content items that has a lot of references, you will be able to basically publish with one click with all the children. When we move to the data modeling fundamentals, again, as Hande mentioned, select field type is the big one that we need to, and we are currently working on that. So we are targeting at the end of April to release this select field type. And then another item that came up quite a lot from you was basically the limitations and validations on reference and media items. What do I mean by this? So in a reference field, you would like to be able to put a limitation for certain content types can be only selected, or you want to limit the number of content or media items that you can link to a reference or a media field. Later, we would also move to the text fields, limitation and validation and other field types along the year. And like this, the dust item in here is simply came in every conversation I have is localization. So we are aware that our customers, your customers, are trying to be present in multiple countries. They need the language support from both authoring perspective and modeling perspective. And we got the message, so we are going to do our homework on summertime and basically work on localization and planning to hopefully release it by the end of summer. No promises, I guess.
No pressure.
And on the media library improvements, again, there were multiple items that were actually quite shared a lot. One was bulk upload. Currently, you can only upload one by one, but good thing is you're going to also have a demo it because it's already on dev, so it's coming really very soon, together with the drag and drop upload. One thing that was also raised by you was the media serialization. So we can currently move the content and content type items from by CLI, but not the media items. But this is also already here, and it's going to show in a moment. Then we also have media transformations GraphQL API. This is also, you're going to get a demo in a moment. And what do we have here left is media file management. So for this, we are targeting May-June timeframe here. What do we mean? Currently, you can upload a file, but then you cannot do much except linking it and using it, of course, but you cannot download it, you cannot replace the file. So these would be following in the May-June timeframe. And in the summertime, we are planning to start supporting additional media, additional file types like documents and videos. And later in this year, we want to be able to start our integration story, first with Content Hub DAM and all the other DAMs out there. That's basically our plan. So now we are going to move to some feature demos.
Okay, so for this part of the demo, I will present from our beta environment because these are some of these are not yet live, so we are still working on them. For this, I set up two new tenants. So we have a SUGCON 1 tenant, and later on you will see the second one as well. So this is a fresh new tenant. There is no data in it, so you'll see that there is only our sample article and no media items. So let's see a bit more the enhancements that we are working on the media. So now, as you know, we were only able to upload a single file on the first GA. So now we are able to select multiple of them and upload them at once. This is from UI perspective, we could have included this from GA, but what we wanted to focus on is not only the front-end bits, since it's the headless CMS, so there is also behind the scenes a new API endpoint where you can use it for bulk purpose as well. So that's why the bulk functions are a bit coming after. Together with that, we also, as Gimel said, it's both UX and the developer experience is important, so we want to make sure that the APIs are right, but also UX is also easy to use. So for example, we already had a drawer, but the drawer, when it comes to the bulk, it didn't feel right. So we also now, as part of this, redesigning it, making it more compact and easy to use by the users. So now that the bulk is there, we also enabled the functionality of drag and drop, because drag and drop didn't make sense when there was only one item. So when it is multiple though, yes, it makes it much easier to use. So all those items are also coming available in the drawer. You can see the progress and go to another page and come back and see what is happening. So now I uploaded these media items to the first tenant, thanks to the CLI. So if you are working on multiple tenants, so you can move your data from one tenant to another. So I will show that part now. Before that, so there, I have another tenant here. So I have also set up the SUGCON 2 tenant. So this one is empty as well, so there is no data. So it doesn't have any media items. So now I will pull the data from the first one and push it to the second one. So let's go to the CLI. Okay, so I can check which tenant I'm connected to. So I'm connected to the second one. I will switch to the first one. I'll give its name. Then it switches to the first one. So what I need to do is now write a command to get all the media items by its ID. So it is possible to filter by the ID. You can define more fine-grained, but I want to get all of it. And what it will do is, so I have a CLI folder here where I'm running the commands. Right now it is empty, this folder, so it will download all the data here. So now it is looking for the items and it pulled them all. So now I have a media folder here. Under this folder, you see some subfolders. We didn't want to put all the media items on the single folder. So right now we use the IDs. So based on the ID's first character, there is a new folder created. And then for each item, you have a separate folder itself, again, based on the ID of the item. And you see the file itself, and as well as a YAML file where you can see the metadata, like the name and description, and further on, when we have more metadata, those will be also available here. So if you want, you can also update, push it on the same tenant, or now, as I will show, we can push it to a completely different tenant. So now I will change the tenant I am on. So now I'll move to the second one. Okay, so now instead of pull, I'll do the push. So this time it's uploading the files as well as the metadata itself. This is done. We can go to our tenant and check. So all three items are created. So what we can do with the CLI is we can also push the items, so to publish them to Edge. So if we want to, we can then use the delivery command. So here I will publish. Similarly, you can also unpublish it. So let's publish all of these. So this can also help if you are running several items, if you want to push them quickly. In the meantime, while we don't have the bulk, that's another option. So the publishing started. Probably, yeah, now they are all being also published. So that's what we worked on the media for the upload, publishing, and the CLI part. In addition to that, we also worked on the delivery endpoint. So from the GA, even it was possible to do the transformations, on-the-fly transformations on the media items. So you can, by changing the URL parameters, you can change the image. You can change its quality, the size, or the rotation. So you can do all these changes. But this was not available on the GraphQL endpoint. So you would only always get the original file. So since we want the experience for the front-end developers to be easy, so we added those options also to the GraphQL endpoint. So here I have an example. So this is a snippet of the front-end, the homepage query, so where we get the feature modules. So this image you might be familiar. So here we are getting the file of the first feature module. This, you know. So let's say for any reason I want to transform this. So what you will see is the transform option. And then from here, you can see all the possible options that are there available for the transformation. So you can, for example, rotate it. Let's turn this thing around. You can change the height of it. And instead of you trying to remember what the URL parameters are, this will be available here. Now it's updated. It added all those parameters. So if we now look into this URL, you will see that our image is changed on the fly. So that makes it easier for the developers. So this ends the part for the media improvements.
And we have some more improvements that we did on the content authoring side. So some of the things we mentioned, some of the things that popped up from the feedback from ourselves or you. So I'll quickly also take a look at them on the previous screen. So one of the things that was a little frustrating, especially if you are working, like for us at least, we had to create a lot of data, delete, make updates and stuff, and the deletion of the items were only possible from the detail page. So if you have 10 items that you need to delete, you have to go one by one to the detail and delete them. It was a bit of a hassle until bulk delete is there. We have a delete option from the list right now, so that kind of changed our lives. One feedback we get, especially for the people who are working on big screens, that our inline title name editing piece here was a bit too detached from the form, so people forgot to add name to their content. So we exposed that name field here so that they, like right now when you make a change, it basically keeps adding and updating both sides. Then for the people who want to work on a full screen instead of on a really small rich text editor here, now you can expand it and actually have your you can have the full size to be able to write your content. And another request that we received was adding a code block. Apparently I forgot to delete all of these things, so I'll just delete and show it to you again. So here you can basically just add a code block and you can select the languages that you would like to embed your code with. And lastly, what we have is what I mentioned earlier, creating a new record, a new reference item along the way. So before, what was possible, only linking the content items from the list that is existing, but you can now create actually a new content item by selecting a type. And then you can save. We are working on also making publish available here, so what you'll be able to basically create your reference item on the fly, publish it, and then come back to your original content, save it, and publish it. So these are concluding our feature demos for today. So what do we have on the next? We will move on to the last part of our presentation. So we talked about what's good, what can be improved, but what's the challenge in Content Hub 1? So one thing that we are experiencing, and I'm also seeing on my discussions with the customer and the partners, is explaining the value. Because if you're used to basically just vis-a-vis editors, previews, headless or structured content is sometimes hard to grasp if you have no idea about it. So we are thinking about this a lot, how we can close the gap between perceived value of the product and the existing value of the product. So we see this as two folds. So the first one is how we can help to get the data out, how we can help the customers, the users, the people who are not familiar with structured content, how we can help them to get the data out so that they see something familiar, they see a model, they see a content that is familiar to them, and then they can start grasping it maybe a little bit faster. And of course, the second part of this is a preview, so that they can say, okay, this is the content, this is how you structure it, and this is how you display it. So that's why we take the first step of helping the users or helping our partners to basically have some templates. So we call them starter templates. These templates are industry-based templates, and we would like to make these templates actually a bit of a community effort. So if you think that you have data model that you think is an industry standard, you can send it out to us. We'll just basically review it and make it available for everyone to use. So I'll quickly demo how did we do it, what did we do it. So here you see a new banner called Starter Templates. So when you see, you will see some industries that we currently added. Let's select travel for now. Here you can see which content types are belonging to these travel templates. So we have a landing page, we have a section, destination, tour, and hotels that you can basically, later we can basically add on them. So once I click here, it will basically start setting up this content items. I forgot to show that this was an empty tenant, so you see there are only 2 items. So if we can go back to the slides now, I'll explain while the data is loaded what we are doing, how did we do it. So we store this content in one section. Now you know what we are talking about. So we actually created all these industry content in our own application. And then we tag them. So we created a content type called template. And in this content type, we are basically storing which content items it belongs to this template. And here, that could have been nice to have a select field as well, which we will replace when we have it. So the data is there, the data is stored. What we are doing when you click the load button basically is connecting to the CLI of content of one section environment, and then pull the data like I showed in the media serialization. And then we connect to the tenant of your choice, the one that you want to load. And then we basically push the data to this tenant, create the content types, content items, and media items, and then we automatically publish those data for you as well. So the only thing you need to do is then just plug this to a front end and actually have a preview. So if we go back to the demo now, let's check if our content items are there or media items are there. So here there are in the media items, Japan, these are all coming from the travel and they're all published. We have our content items created and published, and we have the content types that were logged and they're published. So if you want to add later more content types to this industry, all we need to do is just create the types and link to our template, and then it will be loaded. Later, we want to be able to basically clean up the data or change the industry so that you can have one tenant, but you can just wipe it up, load another industry, plug to the front end, and show it to your customers or explain it. But of course, this is only the first step. So what about the preview? So there, Hande is going to help us see what we have a solution for that.
For the front-end parts, what we worked on is a small Next.js app where I will run locally, where you can connect to that tenant and preview the data. So this we will also make it available as a starter template, starter kit as well. So for this, let me connect. So before that, so the way that we will use the data is like we do for all other places. We'll create an API key to consume the delivery and preview endpoints. So I will create 2 API keys now. So one for delivery. So I'll copy this. So here under this we have an environment setting. So we can set up for different environments. So here that was the delivery. So I put the delivery one. So then I'll create the one for the preview. So all you need to do is to change the keys, so it can also work on different environments. So for now, I'm using the one for beta. So then once this is set up, so I can start the application. And then this will bring our travel, the site up. So it is a landing page. Welcome to Wanderlust. and it has an hero image, and it has the destinations, and then you can go to the details of it as well, and you can see the details of it. So it's a nice way to show the data that you have that has been modeled here. So all the different types that you've seen, then it can be easily previewed. You've seen that I've set up 2 different API keys. So there was one for the delivery and one for the preview. So for the preview, if you add preview to the URL, then you actually get the data from preview. So it helps to also to showcase before publishing, you can see and verify your content. So for this, we can make a test. So let's go to the landing page. So under the landing page, we had the destinations. So that we modeled as a section because our plan is also in the future to have multiple sections. So for now, we have destinations. We could add more. Let's say we want to put Malaysia on top in the list, or maybe if you want to add later on some other, let's remove one country from here. So now, if I go to the preview part, then I'll see that all my changes are there. Since it is not published, so then on this preview, if I don't have the preview on the URL, I'll still see the old one. So this is already gives a head start to interact with the data and to remove the hassle of setting up all that data. So this is still more of a developer-friendly way. Of course, this can be deployed to Vercel and used by marketing profiles as well. But we are aware of this gap as Sitecore, and we are also working on with other products and bringing them together and making them work better together to also resolve this. Later today, Sebastian will also have a session to address this. So if you're interested, don't miss out that session. This concludes our presentation and demos. I hope you enjoyed it. We would like to thank you to all the sponsors and organizers to make this happen. And if you have any questions or any feedback, please reach out to us. We'll be there available on the booths.
With the red t-shirts. So
yes,
thank you very much.